What your vacuum really does to the air, millions of families breathe every single day, will make you think twice before cleaning again. Dust particles blasted straight into your lungs. The machine you trust to clean your home is actually making it toxic. You turn on your vacuum and watch the dust disappear from your carpet. Clean floor, clean home, right? But here's what's actually happening. You're taking dust that was resting safely on the ground and blasting it into the air you breathe. Most vacuum cleaners don't capture fine particles, they just move them. And those particles carry chemicals from your carpet treatments, your vinyl flooring, and flame retardants from your furniture. When we talk about the science of indoor air quality, common sense doesn't always steer us well. We assume vacuuming makes our homes cleaner. But unless you know exactly what kind of filter is in your vacuum right now, you're probably making your indoor air worse every time you clean. So, before you vacuum again, let's dig into what's really happening to the air in your home. And there's no such thing as a safe amount of airborne particles to breathe indoors. In other places in the world, people clean with damp cloths and mops, methods that trap dust instead of launching it. But here in the US, we reach for the vacuum first. You turn on your vacuum. The motor roars. Dust from the carpet gets sucked up through the nozzle. Pet's hair, crumbs, dirt, all of it disappearing into the machine. But here's what most people don't realize. That's only half the journey. Your vacuum pulls air in, sure, but it also has to push air out. And that exhaust air comes out through vents, carrying every particle too small for your filter to capture, which, if you have a standard vacuum with a basic filter, is most of them. So you've taken dust that was sitting on your floor, relatively stable, relatively safe, and launched it into your breathing zone. The vacuum creates an updraft. Those particles float there for minutes, sometimes hours, and while they're suspended in the air, you're breathing them in. There's no such thing as a harmless amount of particles to breathe indoors. Your lungs evolved to handle clean air, not household dust. Every particle that makes it into your respiratory system is a particle your body has to process. In other parts of the world, cleaning means something different. In many Asian households, it means shoes off at the door and surfaces wiped with damp cloths. In Scandinavia, it means mopping with water and opening windows for fresh air. These methods trap particles instead of redistributing them. But here in the US, the vacuum is king. We vacuum everything: carpets, hardwood, tile, and vinyl. And most of us have never stopped to ask whether the machine is making our air cleaner or just moving dust around while we breathe it. The answer comes down to one thing: the filter. And if you don't know what kind of filter is in your vacuum right now, the people who sold it to you definitely don't care. Do you know what kind of filter is in your vacuum? If you don't, I promise you, the manufacturer doesn't care either. Most vacuum cleaners come with basic foam or cloth filters. These capture the big stuff, visible dust clumps, hair, crumbs, but they do almost nothing for fine particles. The ones small enough to stay airborne. The ones that actually matter for your health. A true HEPA filter captures 99.97% of particles that are 0.3 microns or larger. To put that in perspective, a human hair is about 70 microns wide. We're talking about particles hundreds of times smaller than that. Particles invisible to your naked eye. Most affordable vacuums don't have HEPA filters. They have filters that look substantial, but let fine particles pass straight through. So when you vacuum, you're capturing the visible mess and aerosolizing the invisible one, and particle size matters. Particles larger than 10 microns generally get trapped in your nose and throat. Uncomfortable, but not dangerous. Particles smaller than 10 microns, PM10, can make it into your lungs. Particles smaller than 2.5 microns, PM25, can penetrate deep into your lung tissue and even enter your bloodstream. Your cheap vacuum filter isn't stopping PM2.5, it's launching it. If you have a bagless vacuum, here's another problem. Most people take the canister off, carry it to their kitchen trash, and bang it against the side to knock the dust loose. You've just created a particle cloud in the middle of your home. Take it outside, people. But even if you upgrade to a HEPA-filtered vacuum, you're not safe yet. Because what's in that dust matters just as much as the particle size. Let's talk about what's actually in the dust you're vacuuming. It's not just dirt and dead skin. Household dust is a mixture. Carpet fibers, fabric particles, and soil tracked in from outside. but it's also impregnated with chemicals from the surfaces and materials in your home. If you have stain-resistant carpets, they're treated with perfluorinated compounds, the same chemicals used in non-stick cookware. They don't break down easily. They bind to dust particles, and when those particles become airborne, the chemicals come with them. Vinyl flooring releases phthalates, plasticizers that make vinyl flexible. They off-gas slowly and settle into your household dust. Same with flame retardants from furniture, foam, and electronics. These compounds are designed to resist breaking down, which means they accumulate. So when you vacuum with a poor filter, you're not just launching particles, you're launching a chemical payload, and your children are crawling on those carpets, playing on those floors, breathing that air. Studies of household dust consistently find dozens of different chemicals. Pesticides tracked in from outside, volatile organic compounds from cleaning products, heavy metals like lead from deteriorating old paint, even in homes repainted decades ago. The floor is a relatively safe place for these particles to rest. Gravity keeps them there. But the moment you turn on your vacuum, you create an exposure event. Dust that was sitting quietly gets whipped into the air, where it can be inhaled, and where it lingers in your breathing zone for hours. There's no safe amount of these particles to breathe. Your lungs weren't designed to filter industrial chemicals. After you finish vacuuming and put the machine away, how long do those particles stay in the air? Hours. For the finest particles, sometimes days. Large particles settle relatively quickly, within minutes to an hour, depending on air currents. But PM2.5, those particles smaller than 2.5 microns, can stay suspended for 24 hours or more. And if you have central heating or air conditioning, those systems recirculate air throughout your home, keeping particles aloft even longer. So you vacuum your living room at 2 p.m, and by 3 p.m. it looks clean. But the air is still loaded with particles you can't see, and you're breathing them in with every breath. Here's where it gets worse. Most people vacuum their bedrooms. Makes sense, you want a clean sleeping environment. But if you vacuum right before bed, or even a few hours before, you're creating a particle cloud that hangs in the air while you sleep. 8 hours breathing those particles in a closed room. Even worse, vacuuming a nursery. Infants and young children spend more time at floor level, where settled particles concentrate. But they also have developing respiratory systems more vulnerable to particle exposure. When you vacuum their room, you're surrounding them with exactly what you're trying to protect them from. The standard advice is to vacuum when no one is home, or ventilate aggressively afterward. Open windows, run exhaust fans, and let the air exchange. But most people vacuum with windows closed, especially in winter or during summer when the AC is running. So every time you vacuum, you're betting that your filter is good enough. And for most vacuums, that's a bet you're losing. Here's a question. Do you actually need to vacuum your hardwood floors, your tile, your vinyl? In most of the world, the answer is no. Vacuums were designed for carpets, thick piles that trap dirt deep in the fibers. For that job, suction makes sense. But Americans vacuum everything. Hard surfaces where particles just sit on top, easy to wipe away without creating an airborne event. When dust sits on a hard floor, it's stable. Gravity keeps it there. You can capture it with a damp mop or a microfiber cloth, and it never becomes airborne. No particles launched into your breathing zone. No chemical payload suspended in the air for hours. A damp mop traps particles in water. Microfiber cloths use electrostatic attraction to hold dust. Both methods remove contaminants from your home instead of redistributing them through the air, and both have been proven to work for as long as people have been cleaning floors. Modern homes are sealed tighter than ever. Energy efficiency standards have reduced natural air leakage, which means whatever you put into the air tends to stay there. When you vacuum in a tightly sealed home, there is less fresh air coming in to dilute what you just stirred up. The particles remain trapped indoors, circulating through the same rooms over and over. At the same time, furniture, flooring, and wall materials are emitting particles continuously. Vacuuming adds a sudden surge on top of that background load. Instead of reducing exposure, you amplify it in a space designed to retain air. What used to dissipate naturally now lingers. So while the vacuum feels like progress, it is often working against the reality of how modern homes function. We clean as if air moves freely, but it does not anymore. And that mismatch turns a routine chore into a repeated exposure cycle. A HEPA vacuum is a valid tool for deep carpet cleaning, for upholstery that can't be washed, for situations where you genuinely need suction, but for hard floors where dust is sitting on the surface, You don't need a machine. You need water and a mop. If you're going to vacuum, here's how to do it without poisoning your indoor air. Step 1. A true HEPA filter. Not HEPA-like. Not HEPA style. Actual HEPA certification. Look for the label. Real HEPA filters are tested and certified to capture 99.97% of particles at 0.3 microns. That's the size that's hardest to filter. Larger particles get trapped by impact, smaller ones by diffusion, but 0.3 microns slip through cheap filters easily. If the vacuum doesn't explicitly say certified HEPA, assume it's not. But owning a HEPA vacuum isn't enough. These filters need maintenance. Most require replacement every 6 to 12 months, depending on use. A clogged HEPA filter loses effectiveness and can even blow particles back out as airflow drops. If you have a bagless vacuum, empty the canister outside. Not over your kitchen trash. Not in your garage, where dust can drift back inside. Outside, away from windows and doors. And if you're emptying a canister full of toxic dust, consider wearing a mask. If you can, and remember, even HEPA filters aren't perfect. They capture most particles, but not all. Ultrafine particles smaller than 0.1 microns can still pass through. Vacuuming remains a particle disturbance event. The goal is to minimize how often you need to do it. In places where people take indoor air seriously, this is common sense. Don't create exposure events if you can avoid them. Don't trust manufacturers to care about your lungs more than their profit margins. And don't assume that because something is marketed as cleaning, it actually makes your home safer. Water, airflow, and prevention. That's the formula that works, and it's been working a lot longer than vacuum cleaners have existed.